Japan's ruling party is looking to shake things up a bit and allow women to attend key political meetings. But the offer comes with a condition that is causing outrage. Joining us now from Tokyo with the details, CNN's Selena Wang. Okay, tell us about the proposal and the reaction to it in Japan.
Well, Michael, I've spoken to many women here in Japan who say that this is just another example of sexism in Japan's elderly, male-dominated political elite. Now, this proposal came from the ruling party, which was that more women should attend these key meetings, but on the condition that they do not speak. Now, only 2 of the party's 12-member board are women, and only 3 of its 25-member general council are women. I spoke to Tomomi Inada, one of Japan's most prominent female lawmakers, and she told me that Japan is a democracy without women.
And I may have said that's disgusting. I may have said something else. I thought it was terrible. She's a horrible person, knows nothing about me. I see her, she's now the great expert on Donald Trump. I beat her so badly. She's a vicious, horrible person.
On Wednesday, Cuomo publicly apologized, saying he was sorry if he acted in a way that made anyone feel uncomfortable. But as you'll hear tonight, Charlotte Bennett says that apology did not go far enough, calling him a textbook abuser. Governor Cuomo said that he has never propositioned anybody. Do you believe that he was propositioning you?
Yes.
For what?
Sex.
Quote, I never made advances toward Miss Bennett, nor did I ever intend to act in any way that was inappropriate. The last thing I would ever have wanted was to make her feel any of the things that are being reported. But this is now the second woman to accuse the governor of sexual harassment. Earlier this week, a former aide named Lindsay Boylan came forward with detailed allegations, claiming that in 2018, Cuomo kissed her on the lips in his 3rd Avenue office, and there were times he inappropriately touched her back, legs, and arms. She also says the governor would refer to her by the name of Lisa, an ex-girlfriend she apparently resembled. Boylan is currently running for Manhattan Borough President and first raised these allegations late last year. Cuomo's office has denied Boylan's claims, calling them completely false.
Women must earn less than men because they are weaker, they are smaller, they are less intelligent, and they must earn less. That's all.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mario Lopez, Sac State student undergraduate. Today's interview will be for my final project for my EDU 165 course titled Sexual Stereotyping in American Education. Now, today we have a very special guest with us. Joining us is Sacramento Council Member May Bang from District A. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Mario. It is a pleasure to be here on Zoom and in space with you virtually. Thanks so much for inviting me to be part of this conversation. So yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you. Well, can you just tell us about yourself? Give us a little bit of background on who you are and in pertaining to politics.
Yeah, so I'm Mai Vang, and I'm on the Sacramento City Council. I represent District 8, which is the southern part of the city. In District 8, our neighborhoods are Meadowview, Parkway, Cabrillo, Valley High area, North Laguna, Detroit community, everything south of Florin, and everything up from Meadowview Road and Mack Road, all the way down to Franklin and North Laguna area. I grew up here in South Sacramento, born and raised. I am the proud daughter of Hmong refugees. I come from an incredibly large family. I am the oldest of 16 children in my family. I was also the first in my family to go to college as well. So yeah, I grew up here, went to college, and then came back home to take care of family and community, and started organizing when I came back from college, realizing that you can go get a higher ed degree, but if you come back and your families and your communities are still struggling, right? What good is a college degree? And so it's really important to make sure that as you're climbing, you're also lifting those those in your community as well. And so came back to Sacramento, started organizing, started a organization called HIP, Hmong Innovating Politics, to get our communities engaged and activated in the political process. Ran for school board back in 2016, did one term really to make sure we can uplift our student. And then I threw my hat in the ring to run for city council after my term ended on the school board. Because I learned very quickly that, the success of our student is only as successful as, the resources that we pour into our neighborhoods, right? Strong schools equal strong neighborhoods equal strong school. And so I'm on the Sacramento City Council now, have been in the seat for a little over 100 days now, 4 or 5 months. We really hit the ground running during the campaign. Our hashtag was Heart and Hustle, and it is still Heart and Hustle every single day on Zoom calls from 8 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. Lots of meetings, conversations, answering constituents, and really trying to find some tangible solutions for our community and making sure that no one leaves our community in South Sacramento behind. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all your passion and hard work. We really appreciate it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and ask you a couple of questions, and just go ahead and answer them from your heart, Mai.
Okay.
So pretty much, what's the current breakdown by gender of members in your party?
Members of my party, when you say party, do you mean like the Democratic Party, or you mean like the council? Oh, Mario, you're on mute.
Let me rephrase that. I'm sorry. I meant to say in your council.
Oh, in my council, yeah.
Yes,
so,
I'm sorry.
Prior to me entering the city council, Councilwoman Katie Valenzuela and I did join this past winter. Before that, it was only one woman, Councilwoman Angela Gashby, and all men. There are 8 council seats and the mayor seat, so there's 9 seats total. And prior to us winning the elections, there was only one woman. And so now there's 3 women on the council with 9 electeds. I am the first Asian woman on the Sacramento City Council. We've had other Asian electeds on the city council before, but they were all men. But I am the first Asian American woman and the first Hmong elected in the city of Sacramento.
Congratulations. Now, touching on that question, how important is representation of women in a council committee?
Yeah.
And in politics in general?
Yeah, I would say representation is absolutely important, right? It's so important to make sure that we have elected officials and policymakers that represents this community. Oftentimes there are decisions that are made for us and never made by us, by community members who understand the lived struggles of folks on the ground. And so it's so important to make sure that you have folks making decisions that have the lens of those on the ground. That's why representation does matter. But I will also say in addition to representation, values and your philosophy matters too, right? And so, my politics is progressive. I would consider them progressive. And so, if you're really about making change and addressing racial inequities in our city, representation is just the first step, but making sure that you also have someone with bold, courageous viewpoints and the ability to move forward in a way that can really truly uplift community voice and community engagement. And so representation makes a huge difference, but also in addition to representation, and also making sure that folks are aligned in terms of your values.
Thank you. Thank you for that insight. Now, the next question is, have you been a mentor to aspiring or female leaders?
That's a really good question. I don't know. You'll have to ask my students and all the folks that I mentor, right? I don't know. I hope that I'm able to make an impact. I do, teach on the side at Sac State and also at UC Davis. And then on the side of that, I have a few mentees that I've taken under my wings as well. High school students, college student, all right now women of color, LGBT folks. But, I see it as, they call me mentor, but I see them as a partner and a thought partner. Because if anything, I actually learn so much from them. They're my mentees, but I actually learn more from them than I think they they realize. They keep me grounded actually, and they keep me energized. And so, yeah, I think it goes both ways. I think it's not just me mentoring them, but them really, I would say, mentoring me too. Like, I'm learning so many things from our young folks. They are truly on the ground leading. And so I'm really here just to uplift them. They have an incredible voice, a voice that no one tend to listen to, right? It's not like they don't have a voice. They absolutely do. But as elected leaders, we have to make sure that we're present and that we are fully engaged and that we truly are letting them lead. But I can only speak from my experience when I had mentors, right? I know that that was really important for me, to have folks that I could go to get advice from. And so, I would share, there are not a lot of folks that look like me in politics. And we are starting to see an increase in that. But it, I, when I first ran for school board, I don't think there were many folks that I could turn to, right? Because oftentimes we are trailblazers for the first most of the time, right? So, but there are folks that I went to for support, like my grandmother or my mother. My grandmother's on both sides. And while they may not have a college degree and never had the opportunity to get to go to school, they are wise beyond their years. And, I go to them really asking for guidance. I will share with them situations on the school board or city council, and ask them, like, how would they vote on this, right? And they would share with me kind of just their thoughts, right, in Hmong, about being fair and equitable and being just. And oftentimes they really help guide me in my decision making. And so I look to my elders. I have deep respect for my elders. We wouldn't be here without them. And so, I look to them for guidance. And so I think about them. And I think about them when I am mentoring students or young women of color. I think about the mentorship that has been really helpful for me, and hope that I can do the same and pay it forward.
Well, thank you for that. That's such a beautiful cycle. And stingers up, by the way.
Yeah, stingers up.
So the next question I have for you. Okay, we already covered that a little bit of women that inspired you and mentored you growing up with your elders. So thank you for sharing that. Do you feel like you've been treated differently um, as a politician because of your gender or your race or ethnicity?
Absolutely. I don't think you can separate that from your lived experience, right? Your identity and your gender, your multiple identities, like that intersectionality piece. I will say, in all spaces you enter, right? Not just in mainstream politics, but I would even say in your own community as well. You can definitely see the difference in a Hmong male elected versus a Hmong woman elected, in terms of how a specific segment of the community responds to you, or the things that they say to you. And so it's very real. The gender piece, the age piece, I would also share as well. If you're not married, if you don't have kids, right? There are multiple factors, I think, that in terms of how you're treated. So yeah, it depends on which part, but I think all of it. Me being a woman, me not having kids, me being young, I think being young, being one of color, not having children, what is currently expected of you, right? And then the other piece is also, I'm very cognizant also of just things that are said to me, right? There is this hypersexualization of Asian women in this country. And, I've been in situations where, comments were made, or you can just tell by the way in which they talk to you of how they see you, right? It is, it's everything from that to microaggressions. But I've learned to cope, not to make an excuse that that is not acceptable, but really figuring out how to protect and conserve my energy, right? When is it time to fight those battles, and when and selecting when I choose to correct folks. I try to do it in every moment that I can, but I'm also very cognizant of protecting my energy and my time in a way that can sustain this work. So yeah.
Very powerful insight, Mai. Thank you. Now, the next question I have for you, what do you think is necessary for women to gain parity in politics?
Yeah, I think a big part, one, we need more of us to run for office for sure. And I think it takes on an average 7 times for a woman to be asked before they can run for office. I think really encouraging our sisters to run for office. And I would say to them, you know, you are as ready as you'll ever be for running for office. Everything you've experienced in your life up to this moment has prepared you. And so I think encouraging more folks to run for office is absolutely important. That's the first piece. And then the other second piece is, you know, when folks are running for office and you make the ask for them to run, you know, make sure you support them with boots on the ground or money. It is extremely expensive to also run campaigns, right? You need a people-powered campaign to win, but it takes dollars to get your message across. And so making sure that there are infrastructure in place to support women who are interested in running, that's really important.
Yes, thank you. That is also very positive. I've learned so much in this course of the things that I find unjust and the inequalities women face, because without women, we wouldn't be here. So what I personally learned is not only not uh, liking that sort of behavior, but actually being an active ally. So I agree with you, boots on the ground, donating when you can. And yes, thank you for that. Now, the next question I have for you, what do you think it means to young women to finally have a female vice president?
I think it's inspiring. It's absolutely inspiring and powerful to see someone in that position that you can relate to. That's so important, and it also it makes me hopeful for all the little Mai's out there, right? All the little Kamalas, all the little Mai's, all the little Katies, all the little everyone who's running, right? There's so many young girls watching, and I think when they see that these spaces can be occupied and can and these positions have women who can lead, it really, I think, sets the foundation for everything else that we want to do, and it gives us a lot of hope. So yeah, I think it's absolutely empowering and inspiring, and hoping that, you know, she's not the she's the first but not going to be the last, and there's so many more to come. And there's going to be many more firsts, and we got to just keep pushing. We just got to keep pushing.
I agree with you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, my last question to you, do you have any advice to young girls and women who dream of being in politics?
Yeah, I would say be you, be authentically yourself. There is no one that can share your story, your lived experience. There's no one that knows your lived experience by yourself and what you can bring to the table. And so, the first thing I would say is be authentically yourself. That is what the people want. That is what the people is looking for. So, if you can live your authentic self, you're going to be okay. The second piece I would say, and I shared a little bit earlier, is that if you ever have a doubt of not running for office, don't listen to that voice and just do it. We are our worst critics. And like I said, there is nothing that has prepared you for this moment. Everything that you've gone through and endured in your life prepared you for this moment. So jump in the race, you know, run for office. And whether you win or lose, you're going to change the dynamic of the race. You're going to change the conversation. If you don't end up winning, the person who ends up winning will probably carry some of your platforms because they're going to be challenging you and you're going to be challenging them. And it actually is good for democracy, right? You're changing the dynamic of the political landscape of the campaigns. So it's so important for you to be in the space, to step up, to run. And we want you to win, right? We want you to win. But if you don't win, you have already won because you have already changed the landscape and the conversations happening for your community.
Powerful, powerful advice. Thank you for that. And that is it for us. Thank you so much, Mai, for taking the time for joining us today. And I hope you have a great and wonderful week, a wonderful month, and a wonderful and successful council, and even go higher in the politic realm if you choose to. And I hope to see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Mario. Thank you so much for covering this. Have an awesome day.
I'm the Chief of Staff to Mayor Pro Tem Ashby, but I'm also elected myself to the County Board of Education here in Sacramento that oversees the 13 school districts. So I wear two hats. So when I speak, sometimes it's about my personal experience, sometimes it's about both, being a staffer as a Chief of Staff to the Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Sacramento.
What has your journey been being a woman in politics?
So let me just kind of take it a little step back because I never expected myself to be in politics. Okay. So I'm originally from Willows, California. It's a really small town, an hour and a half north of Sacramento. My graduating class was 120 students. I was part of a program called Educational Talent Search, which helps low income and first generation students get to college. And that being in that program helped me get to UC Davis, where I did my undergrad and did community regional development, which is perfect for my job. But at the time, I knew I wanted to be a counselor to give back to other students. Because if it weren't for my mentor and if it weren't for my older sister, going to Chico State, she's like 8 years older than me, I probably wouldn't have gone into UC Davis. So I graduated UC Davis in 2011. Went into educational, I worked for the Educational Talent Search, the program that I was once part of, for 4 years actually, where I had like 500 students at once that I had to provide information on financial aid, scholarships, A through G, anything education, college-wise, you would ask me, I know it. Like in Santa Barbara, they have like tortilla competitions. At Stanislaus, they do like something annual for Pi Day. Always know the most random facts about college. So it's, it's a really exciting subject matter for me. My contract ended with UC Davis, and then I went into HR. So I had one career change there, education to HR. I worked for a Fortune 500 company where I was finding financial analysts, controllers, budget analysts, accounting managers, anything in finance. I knew zero about finance, but I went into this HR role and kind of conquered that world. And, you ask me about QuickBooks, I know all the different versions. You learn as you go type of job. Okay. I started paying attention to politics in 2018 when Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton were running in the age of Trump. That's kind of what caught my attention to some of the issues that both Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton were, debating. It was just, things that I really cared about, like student loans and just housing and working class rights. And, I was in HR at the time, so I had a little bit more time and like just leisure to tune into what was going on at the national stage compared to when I was working in education. I was working 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on the ground, just working with my students. I didn't have time to pay attention to the grand scheme of things and what's going on in education in that regard. I was more like, I'm going to do the work on the ground and this is what I'm going to do. Right. So it was kind of a shift in terms of my passion and what I was learning about. So 2018 kind of marks the time where I became interested in politics as a hobby. Never did I think it'd be something that I did as a career. So in 2018, after Donald Trump got elected, I went to the Women's March, and I just marched alongside thousands and thousands of women across the country and the world. It was like a moment for a woman to stand up and say, hey, these are my rights that you are talking about, and just the bigotry and just the hate, like just everything that was spewing at the time. It was just so, it was getting to me and the communities and the people that I care about. So that marks day one where I just said, I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to stand on the sidelines. So I was involved with the local Democratic Party here in Sacramento for a year. And then I get a call in January of 2018 from a gal named Diana Rodriguez, who was a school board member, who asked me if I wanted to run for office. I didn't know who she was. So I said, I don't know who you are. I don't know anything about politics, but sure, I'll meet you for coffee. And she explains to me that, my experience as a counselor for the last 4 years and as a recruiter in HR, where I was helping people build up their resumes and helping them find their career pathways, was actually perfect for this role. And I agreed with her. I was like, you know what, that's actually not too bad. It's only 2 meetings a month. That's fine. So that's when I decided to run for office in late January, February of 2018. Board of Education. And along the way, I met Angelique Ashby, the council member of District 1 and the mayor pro tem of the city of Sacramento. I asked her for her endorsement. She had myself and 2 other gentlemen that she had to consider for an endorsement. And she's really popular in the district. So her endorsement really mattered. And luckily, she didn't know who I was, but she believed in me and she believed in my experience being of value to that board. And she endorsed me. And that begins my trajectory in my career in politics. Is this woman, Angelique Ashby, giving me an opportunity for an endorsement and then giving me the opportunity to kind of work alongside her as I went down the campaign trail. And so that begins my career.
Well, congratulations. Seems like an amazing journey. And you've done well for yourself. Thank you for sharing.
I got elected July 14th. And then I started my job as chief of staff with Mayor Pro Tem Ashby on July 23rd. So in a 1 week, I became elected and I started this new job at the city of Sacramento.
Congratulations. You are a go-getter and you go, and even though it wasn't your field, the cards lined up for you and you took opportunities when they present themselves. And then I like that you're very passionate about politics and how your attention was caught in 2018, because those were some times to really start paying attention and make sure we're doing our civic duty. So thank you for that.
Right. Yeah, I think it was kind of a jump for everybody.
Yeah. Now, did you have women role models who were women politicians growing up when you were younger?
No. I actually, like I mentioned, like I wasn't I didn't really pay too much attention to politics, to be honest. I mean, I had my older sister Olga, who's a role model, my cousin Adriana, who's a role model, my mom, who she's worked at the cannery. My dad passed away 10 years ago, but worked in the almond orchards, and they had 5 kids. So my parents were my role models, right? In college, I would say, Michelle Obama, President Obama, I looked up to them. There was a professor named Adela de la Cruz, who's now in San Diego. I think she's a president now. And she was my first Latina professor and actually my first Latina teacher ever in my entire life. And I think that was my 2nd year at UC Davis. I was pretty inspired by her and her ability just to instruct. And I would say she was a mentor. I didn't get a chance to work too close with her one-on-one, but she was my professor for 2 classes. And so I looked up to her, but no, I wouldn't say I had a role model at that time. I think
in
that
politics, but
now,
you did.
now
It sounds like you were surrounded by strong female role models, and that I think is a blessing in itself.
Yes, I would 100% say I was surrounded by amazing, strong, beautiful role models. Maybe they're not in politics, but they're certainly role models.
So that brings me to my next question regarding representation. How do you feel there is the importance of representation as far as women in lead roles in politics for young women and yourself?
Geez, we need to make room for them.
Yeah.
We need to put a seat at the table for ourselves, and we can't wait for somebody else to push the chair out. We have to yank that chair out and put ourselves in it. There's just not enough women in leadership roles. You see that across all spaces, and I mean, education, HR, especially in politics. It's just 100% not acceptable that I am one of the youngest elected officials in the Sacramento region, and I'm 32. I've already had a full career behind me, but I'm still one of the youngest, and it's because we have a lot of leadership that is still present in Sacramento, which is great, but we also need to make room and give other people an opportunity to lead. But that's where women need to support women. When there's an opportunity, like Mayor Pro Tem Ashby had the opportunity of endorsing me versus 2 other gentlemen who she already knew before she met me, but she gave me that opportunity to succeed. She gave me that opportunity to be a chief of staff with zero experience. You know, it takes more than a mentor. It takes someone that's going to advocate for you and put themselves on the line. And I just believe that we as women need to do that for other women. And so I actually have 3 mentees right now that I'm helping, because that's what we need to do. Leadership is when you bring others up with you.
Yes, thank you. Got to continue the cycle of empowerment and continual representation. Good, thank you.
Especially in policy. I mean, it's your experiences. I mean, me, I'm a English language learner. I mean, my parents were very low income, like, I mean, from WIC to food stamps, like, you know, kind of living that experience. I mean, just being a woman, and still I have to work twice as hard to prove myself compared to other people that don't look like me. We have to dot our I's and cross our T's on everything that we do, just because the expectation is there and we're kind of setting the pathway forward.
Thank you for that. So the next question, you kind of touched on it. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit. Do you feel like you've been treated differently as a politician because of your gender?
Yeah, and I think that because I think both my age and my gender. When I interviewed for the Sacramento Bee for the endorsement, the first question that they asked me was, "How old am I?" And I said my answer was, 29, but in my experience, my age is not a reflection of my experience, because I have 10 years of experience in education. I mean, I had been mentoring kids since 2007 when I started at UC Davis. I was like an instructor and a tutor. So, you know, I have 2007. I've been in the classroom. I've done special education as an aide, as a teacher. I had all this experience. But they asked me that question, even though I was a middle-aged person. We had someone that was 9 years older than me, and we had a gentleman that was 1 year younger than me, but they didn't ask the gentleman how old he was. They asked me. So 100%, I mean, even the way that everything that I do, I'm always extra cautious about how I'm going to do my hair, what I'm going to wear for that day, what I'm going to say. I want to come in with facts. I'm always like preparing for an interview, for like debate, whatever it may be. I know that I have to work twice as hard to ensure that I'm taken seriously and that I'm respected, because that's just the reality of it. You know, it's implicit bias is there, mansplaining is there. There's just a lot that goes into it. So 100%, I mean, it's kind of, it's sad, right? It's sad that we're still at this place, but I'm pretty fortunate to have my boss, Angelique Ashby, help me kind of maneuver these pathways, and we stand up for each other, and we're kind of like a team where some days, you know, people will like, she's running for Senate right now, and that's just, I mean, another hurdle for herself, and I'm there to support her, and she's there to support me. So it's always nice to have that company and that support.
I'm all about the journey. Thank you for sharing that. Now, the next question, have you encountered any specific obstacles in politics that maybe can be attributed to sexism specifically?
I would say, like, you know, an example that I can think of is yesterday. I'll give an example of Mayor Pro Tem Ashby. Yesterday we had an ordinance in regards to massage parlors, because a lot of times they're a place of sex trafficking, right? We were changing the code to change the administrative process of it, so that the permitting would be a little different than what we have now, where it's harder to shut down a bad actor, right? Mm-hmm. Part of the policy changes was that massage parlors had to wear a certain attire, that there would be a dress code. Okay, fine. But not so fine. Why don't you focus on the people that are coming in for those services and what happens to them, rather than changing what a woman has to wear such that she's not sexually appealing to the people coming in requesting these things. It's not okay to make women, again, the victim, and the people that are going to get punished if they're not wearing the appropriate costume because someone else wants to come in and get something like that. And, you know, when everyone got the briefings, no one, I mean, it had been on law and ledge. My boss had requested this 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and it finally made its way to the city council yesterday. but it went through a long ledge process with only men on the dais going through this. And, you know, they just didn't catch that. But for us, when you're telling me that you're going to restrict something that I have to wear in order to make men feel more comfortable to get a massage, why don't you go track down the men that are asking for these services? What's their consequence? Why is it that the massage parlor, which many times it's Asian women, why are they going to be the ones that are penalized for something like this? And that's just like an example that comes off the top of my head where your gender lens means a lot, because anytime I'm running, I have to be aware of what the heck I'm wearing, what time of day it is, am I going to take my dog, am I getting whistled at? It's just, you know, it's an everyday experience for women. And yesterday when that policy came to council, my boss saw it and was like, no, we're focusing on the wrong thing here. For you guys, it may just seem, yeah, we're going to check the attire of these people. No, you know, you should focus on the people that are asking for those services and who is sex trafficking these women. We're missing the mark a little bit. So,
Yeah, that's good that you guys refocused on the actual perpetrators rather than deflecting and focusing it on appearance of women, because you know it's not fair to objectify women based on their appearance. It's something that I believe and that I'm trying to teach my nephews at a young age, and also have open dialogue about it, just so they're aware of it and they understand that it's not right. And
yeah.
it's about the content, it's about the person's character, it's about their experience, and to leave the appearance out of it, specifically with women who have been going through this for a long time. So thank you guys
Right.
for that.
Yeah, and then another thing that my boss has, well, Angelique Ashby has kind of championed is a few years ago when we were doing homelessness, we received some funding to help address it. And the idea at the time was housing first, you know, just put a roof over someone's head. It's okay if people are all in one space, but you can't do that with women and children. Housing first model doesn't work for CPS. Housing first model doesn't work for little kids that need a place to run around with other strangers being there. Like it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it
And
could be
so
dangerous.
very dangerous.
Yeah.
So we pushed back, and my boss presented, Angelique Ashby presented a 5-point plan saying, hey, let's take a diversified approach to these funds, to these dollars that we're receiving from the state, instead of doing housing first, because a one size fits all approach just doesn't work for women and children. I can tell you right now that my daughter would not feel safe running around in a space like this. And so it's always that, like, okay, well, how do we view it? And that's another example of just like policy through a gender lens, and you know how we can see some stuff a little different.
Good, and good, and making sure that you guys are looking at the problem, as opposed to just superficial solutions. So thank you guys for that. It's really important. So the next question, what do you think is necessary for women to gain parity in policy?
Parity in policy. I think that we need to promote more women to executive leadership roles. We did, so McKinsey and Company does their annual report every year, which might be helpful for your project as well, on pay equity across the United States. In the past, they've only done like corporations and kind of like private sector type of businesses. But recently, or 2 years ago, Councilmember Ashby made the ask of them if they would ever consider doing government. And so they started collecting information from government entities, and City of Sacramento participated. And their study showed that women are hired at the same rate as men, but there's a middle gap where women are not promoted as quickly as their counterparts, which then leads to the executive role. And so we're missing a large gap in parity in terms of middle management. And if you look at the McKinsey report, it will give you kind of more statistics if you want to like look at that after this call. And you'll see that there's this vacuum where we need more women in middle management type of positions so that they can then promote to executive. But the most easy answer to your question is we just need more women in politics. You know, we're still only 20%, 30% across the state. When it comes to Latinas, I mean, we're like 2%. It's just such a low number of women in politics. I mean, if you look at Sacramento history, all the assembly members and senators that have been elected have all been men since Deborah Ortiz, who was an assemblywoman like a few years ago. But we've only elected men. If you look at the Board of Supervisors, there's only been 5 women in the history of the Board of Supervisors. Like if you look at kind of the track record, it's just we need to make more room. But at the same time, you know, you have to make sure that these positions are full time.
So a modern analogy to the glass ceiling would be, yes, maybe some percentage of women have broken or found holes through that glass ceiling, but I feel that it's still there in a different form. It's adapted, and I think it's definitely important to make sure that we break that glass ceiling completely and not just offer, you know, a small percentage of access through that glass ceiling. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then my last question right now, um, just because it's current in 2021, this hectic time of a pandemic, our Vice President Kamala Harris, how did you feel when you found out that we were gonna have Kamala Harris as a Vice President in the United States?
I'm so excited. You know, when you think of just all the young little girls out there that can now look at a photo and not only see a bunch of men, it's going to go a long way. When you see someone that looks like you in a position of leadership, it makes a difference in your heart and in your mind and your outlook of where you get to in life. It's an exciting, I mean, especially just, you know, being Indian and Black and a woman from California. It's just so exciting for all of us. And I just look forward to seeing where she goes and how her gender lens will make a difference for our country. I'm just so proud.
Yes, I agree, and I'm with you. And I'm excited just seeing all the progress and all the work they're doing. And I'm excited for her success. And I'm excited for the representation
Yes.
because of how we said earlier, it's really, really important. And I think it's going to show a lot of Americans who maybe have different views or maybe have or come from different backgrounds to see and to experience that gender doesn't matter. You can be successful. You can be the vice president. You can be the president. You can be in these high executive positions. You can be of a minority background, and it is possible. It's just, you know, the work is still to be done, which is unfortunately, but I'm liking where it's gone so far, having Kamala Harris as our vice president.
It's a step in the right direction.
Definitely, definitely. And I would like to thank you for taking the time out and meeting with me about
For
this
sure.
very important topic about women in politics. And hopefully this can be very insightful, and anyone who watches this can get some great insight, and hopefully it inspires them as well. Because you
Well,
are
thank
you are very inspirational, and thank you so much for your time and your dedication and your drive to go for these positions and be successful in these positions, and for being a representative.
Well, thank you for taking interest in this subject matter. I mean, it's so important. I mean, we're only going to be able to move up the ladder the more it's highlighted, the more people see it, and the more people take interest in it, the more allies that we have. And you know, once people watch your video, they're going to have, I mean, that insight, and it's so valuable. So thank you for reaching out. And if you need anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're always doing events, and especially policy events. I can let you know if there's something of interest. I'll make sure to stay in contact with you. Okay.
Definitely. And if you have any events and you need participants, if you're trying to get the word out, I could always share it with my classes and my professors, and we'll be more than willing to help you guys out and collaborate and just empower a whole bunch of people.
Love it. All right. Have a good one, Mario.
Mire, señor diputado, según usted, según sus teorías, yo no tendría derecho de estar aquí como diputada. Y sé que le duele y le preocupa que hoy las mujeres podamos estar representando a los ciudadanos en igualdad de condiciones con usted. Yo aquí vengo a defender a las mujeres europeas de hombres como usted.
I say on advice as the clerk swivel round to me. Two things. First of all, we don't name call in this chamber. And secondly, I'm dealing with the matter. The right honourable gentleman will listen and benefit from listening. Secondly, we do not address people by the titles of their spouses. The Shadow Foreign Secretary has a name, and it's not Lady something. We know what her name is, and it is inappropriate and frankly sexist to speak in those terms. And I'm not having it in this chamber. That is the end of the matter. No matter how senior a member, that parlance is not legitimate. It will not be allowed, and it will be called out on it. And I require no chuntering representatory position from any occupant of the Treasury bench. I've said what the position is, and believe me, that is the end of the matter. I hope I've made the position extremely clear to people who are not well informed about such matters.
The efforts to break the glass ceiling have been successful because if it's not cracked yet, it will.
We were very excited when Joe Biden announced that he was going to pick a woman VP, but we also thought, of course you are. When you look at the list of qualified women, it's easy to see that there's a long list of great choices there. It's easy to see that a woman is a phenomenal choice.
When presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden nominates a woman as his vice president, it will only be the third time in U.S. history that a woman was the vice presidential candidate.
So hopefully we're going to see some women take over. It's our turn.
Anyway, thank you all. Madam Speaker, Madam Vice President. No president has ever said those words from this podium. No president has ever said those words. And it's about time.